I think that's
Holy fun.
me.
You, me,
Yeah.
maybe my wife.
Yeah, girlfriend,
My parents.
other girlfriend. Yeah. I think this is your stream, Phil. I think you need to introduce it to everybody.
Yeah. So, you want to start or should I?
Your stream, mate. You can introduce us.
All right. So, welcome to a new, I don't know how to say that. It's just something we're going to try. I'm Phil Röteli from Röteli Racing in Switzerland. Most of you might know me because, you're here. So you might actually follow what I'm doing. So, that's Chris. And as you can see, I'm kind of a little bit nervous because I didn't know what to expect. And so Chris also has a GR from Scotland, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Scotland, yeah. And we decided to just start to talk a little bit about the GR and things you can do to the car or what we've done to the car. And yeah, let's see where that goes.
I think, the other reason we wanted to do this was the sheer volume of questions we get on Instagram, YouTube, all over the place too. It's really difficult to collate everything. There's so much that we could talk about, so many questions people ask. We thought if we did this every couple of weeks, it's an opportunity for people to come to us with the questions. We're not experts. I don't know about you, Phil, but I'm not an expert. You're not an expert as well, probably. But we at least have contacts in places who might be able to answer questions as well. So it could be a suggestion that you have or information you want. If we can't answer it, we can at least take it away and ask the question for you as well and come back to you with an answer. So it's mainly like a knowledge sharing thing for me. It was a chance to get together, talk about, could be new developments, could be new products, it could be racing teams, could be anything, but focused around the Yaris. Whether or not this grows arms and legs, if it becomes a regular thing, if it does, great. If it doesn't, if it's not wanted, then also great. But we thought we'd give it a try, see what happens, and yeah. So I think today we've said we're just going to start off with a couple of introductions, get to know myself and Phil, and then from there open the floor to you guys if you have any questions as well.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start with my background, and for me, it's I learned to become a car mechanic. That's a long time ago. 21 years ago, I started, and I'm old. So then I worked as a car mechanic for a couple of years, and now I'm in something completely different. I'm in finance now, but I worked on cars basically all my life, and started to work on customer cars a couple of years ago. And I'm working with a friend of mine, a business partner, who also worked on my GR from the beginning. And I'm racing for like 15 years now. I started with hill climb and slalom race. I don't know what's that called in English. Just on a very
slaloms, I think.
Slalom, it's also slalom. So and hill climbs as well for a couple of years, and then I decided to take it back to the racetrack, because at the first time I got to a racetrack was like when I 18, 19, started some track days, and I just wanted to go back to that because for me it's just more fun, because you have a lot more seat time than hill climbing. And that's why I do Time Attack now, because it's an affordable series to race in.
Affordable.
Ish. But as soon as you go in a full-blown race series, like at the Nürburgring, the RCN or VLN or something like that, or even Renault Clio Cup, it's just like tens and hundreds of thousands of euros each year. And so I just don't have that kind of money, because it's just a hobby. And so that's basically my background. And I started doing YouTube videos a couple of years ago. I didn't have any idea what I'm doing, and I still don't. But that's why we are here today.
Just want to jump in as well with the chat. So Appreciate obviously mentioning about the audio as well. It's again, this is the first time setting this up. We're both using headphones. There's no professional setup here at all. I don't even know if we can balance the audio, Phil. I don't know if you have any controls for that, but
no idea.
No,
Let me check.
So no idea. But yeah, like again, thanks to the guys that are here already as well. Again, we're starting small, see how it goes. But you guys in the chat, seeing everything that's coming in as you message as well. So if we don't acknowledge you straight away, apologies. Could be in the middle of a story, could be saying all sorts. But if you have feedback, please let us know, because if this is going to work, then we need your guys' help as well to kind of offer suggestions of what you want to see, what's going to work for you too. As for me, obviously Phil's introductions. For myself, I am from England originally. I live in Scotland now. I moved here when I was 17. Went to university, studied biology, had dreams of being a doctor or a chemist, and that just never happened. I started working in bars. I started working in telecoms as well. I worked for a company called Virgin Media in the UK, installing cable TV, broadband. But it always felt kind of unfulfilled. Like it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. So when an opportunity came around last year with a redundancy from my previous job, they offered a pile of money to leave, basically. And I thought now's a good time to develop my skills, use the contacts that I've got, the platform that I have with Instagram. Obviously, that account's taken off massively with the car over the last couple of years as well. I have an opportunity to do something that I wanted to do, and I've always wanted to do, which is to work with cars, work with design and engineering. And now here I am doing 80 hours a week, miserable, less money than I've ever had in my entire life. But I'm telling myself I'm enjoying it. But the Yaris for me was the catalyst for that. I picked the car up over 3 years ago now, and it's always been my focal point. A lot of the development that I've done is using the Yaris, all the 3D scans, all the product development, all the track days and the racing and everything too. And everything's been centered around that. I have branched out and done things with other cars too, but the main focus, my kind of special interest, if you want to call it that, is the Yaris. That's brought me the following on Instagram, is how I met you as well. I met Phil on the forums, talking about his videos. I remember on the forums when he started doing the videos as well, and how kind of small time it was compared to the professionalism he now has. Obviously, with, is it Gaten in France doing the editing for you as well, and you've got fancy cultural appropriation jokes and all sorts going on. So it's been good to watch you go, and we have known each other this entire time. So to get to meet you in Italy last month before as well, it's been a good wee adventure. So now plans for me is Phoenix Composites is limited company in the UK. It's all registered. It's all above board, and I just make stuff. People come to me and say, "Can you make stuff for me?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I'll try." And if it makes me money, then great. But if it doesn't, I'm learning skills the whole time as well. So sometimes I could be sitting up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning working on designs for parts. But in doing that, it's also helping me to develop. And the more I develop, the more that I can offer to other people as well. And hopefully, if the business will scale, then this could go somewhere. But we'll see. It's still early days. It's still within the first year. So things are tough at the minute. But I'm hoping with the right kind of work ethic, it will get there. So we'll see. So a couple of years will be interesting to see where this goes.
You summoned it pretty nicely, because I was following you from, I don't know, not day one, but very early on.
I actually think you didn't like me at the first as well, because I know we had a couple of conversations on the forums where you didn't seem to like me very much. But yeah,
we had a few disagreements.
We did.
Especially, I wasn't very how do you say? I wasn't very
friendly.
No,
nice.
That was one maybe. No, I think the one thing that shocked me was when you put it on air.
Yeah.
that was like I was like, oh my god, it's a performance car, and this dude puts it on air suspension. So why?
That was a wild time. No, yeah. You know what? I've managed to push that out of my mind for a while as well. I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, it was. I think that's where my Instagram account kind of gained notoriety, was because I did that. As far as I know, it was the first in the world to do it, and everyone kind of went, "Why?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Why not?" So I do car shows and all sorts, and I spent a lot of time on the aesthetics of the car. Like the car's ugly, but it's ugly in a kind of fun way, and I just loved messing around and making parts for it. And then after a while, I kind of started to get an itch for track days. So then I was on track on air suspension. It was actually doing okay as well. Like the times it was setting weren't that bad. Obviously, it wasn't as quick as it is now. I'm never going to say that a cheap air suspension setup is going to be better than a set of Ohlins or Nitrons or something. But it was fun. But that's how people end up getting to know me, was because of that. And then I decided I'd had enough and I just wanted to go faster. Then the Ohlins went in the car and then I crashed it, which is funny because I never crashed when it was on air suspension. And the minute I put expensive coilovers on, I crashed it. And yeah, now it's just become full-blown race car. Now all I want to do is just go faster and faster in it.
Yeah, I also think it's because of the Öhlins, because I also crashed with the Öhlins.
Exactly, not because of the M4 that you drove into the side of, but
no,
it was definitely the Öhlins.
The Öhlins, yeah, of course. Now, all jokes aside, that's actually the reason why we started talking to each other. And when we met in March, was it? Is that already 2 months ago?
And March, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, March. So, but thanks to you, I got to Acme. And so, yeah. So if anybody watches from Acme, you know, he's the guy responsible.
Yeah, too famous for us there, too busy building rally cars for Hyundai.
Yeah.
And not interested in us two small guys. Yeah. But Acme, that's one of the things we have in common now. I've always spoke very highly of Acme anyway. My car had some work done by Fensport a couple of years ago. When Tom left Fensport, it was a massive loss to the company, but that meant they wouldn't work on Cyvex anymore. So Tom recommended Matteo to me. And at first I was kind of like, these guys are in Italy, it's remote tuning, is it really what I want to do? But having worked with them, it's been developing the entire time. So my headphones keep pulling out my ears and I'm really sweaty from the nerves, so I need to keep putting them back in. But these guys have looked after me so well since I started working with them, and I see it as more of a partnership now because they're constantly reviewing logs, and I'm going out on track, for instance, sending it back to them. They're working on it, coming back. There's no their support isn't just a case of you pay, say, €600 for a map, and then that's it. You buy yourself. See you later. And if you have any problems, you can pay more money. They've looked after me, and I'm sure you're finding the same thing with them now as well. They're a really good group of guys to work with. So again, if anybody is interested in remote mapping, Ecotech, that kind of thing, Acme, highly recommended, at least by me. But I am biased, and I'm sure you're biased as well. But yeah, little advert for you as well. Sponsored streams.
Yeah, but I was very skeptical when I went down there. Even on my way down there, or when I arrived there, I was like, yeah, was that the right decision to go to Italy to have my car mapped?
And then they took you out for lunch on the first day and you went, yeah, this was a good idea.
Yeah, but it honestly was, after I met them, after the first 5 minutes, I instantly knew that's the guys I want to have working on my car. And yeah, it was a very good decision. And they also supported me on the first track day while I was at Anodura. We had some small issues, some small minor errors on the dash, and I actually wrote them on around noon, sent them the logs, and they were actually at the race at the rally with Toyota with the Kia Yaris.
And, with Jando's car, the Rally 2 car.
Yeah. But they still took a look at the logs and said, yeah, everything's fine. This is that, and whatever, and explained everything to me. And yeah, took their time, even while they were in the paddocks. So Toyota for their Rally 2 cars.
The problem we've got here is if we recommend them and say they do all this stuff, but this is special treatment we're getting, then if anybody else goes to them and expects maps at 3 o'clock in the morning from Matteo on a Sunday and things I'm not sure if that's a normal service for everybody, but no, honestly, great group of guys. I say they've looked after me. I have total faith in what they're doing, and it was fun going over there to visit as well. We're going to try and get Matteo or Alberto, one of the guys that works on the cars, onto one of the streams at some point. They'll obviously be able to explain more about the company, so I don't want to dwell too much today on Acme. They are massive. They have so many things that they do. I mean, they said, 20% of the business is mapping and the rest is engineering, basically. Yeah, so they're a huge company. So I think if we carry these on, we'll try and get someone from Acme on at some point, and they can explain more too. But yeah, good group of guys to work with. Same for the rest of this series as well. I think we need to come up with an actual structure, but we're fortunate to have contacts in various industries, like in guys at Toyota Gazoo Racing. Would be interesting to listen to. We've got guys at Acme. We've got people working in suspension and engineering and race teams. And I think there's an opportunity to get some really interesting people together if that's what people want to see and find out more about how these things work. So we'll see. Hopefully, if this is successful, that's something we can do anyway.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of contacts in rally and with Toyota, and for me, it's kind of the other way around. I have a lot of contacts overseas, and also in the UK, actually, with a lot of people who do really serious racing stuff.
Yeah.
And I learned quite a lot from them over the last couple of years, and so that's why I am also where I am right now, because of a lot of people helped me along the way.
That's an interesting point as well. Like, help is, I know people like to say it's self-made. I know people like to say, look at everything that I've achieved, but same with myself. Like the car, the state it's in, I wouldn't have been able to achieve that. I work with some really great sponsors. There's a lot of friends that have given favors too. Like, I've been very fortunate to build the car that I have, because if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't have a race car. I wouldn't have the following with the Yaris too. So like, it's a small opportunity. I do want to thank everybody that's been involved in this help. Everything from parts to discounts to even the conversations when I'm wanting to sell the car and give up and get rid of it. It's everything helps to get to this stage. So on a personal matter, like, I do appreciate you all, if you're even in here, that have helped me for doing that. It'd be interesting to see where the next couple of years go with the car as well. Hoping for big things, but we'll see.
Yeah. So I think we're already in the middle of what we wanted to talk about today. And if you have any actual questions, just write them down in the comments. Maybe we can answer them today, or maybe we're gonna answer them in another one. The idea is basically, now it's just a sort of introduction, and do people wanna actually hear and see what we're gonna talk about? And yeah, for the future topics, it would be more technical, more about parts, more about the GR. I think we're gonna structure it a little bit, for like, we're gonna talk about engine mods and everything, and then the next time we're gonna talk about suspension and stuff. Hopefully that works. If not, we'll just take it as it goes. And yeah. And I also don't know how much we have to talk about, actually. Is it 15 minutes? Is it 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think we need to make this beneficial for people to actually come here and, like, I don't want this to turn into just two guys chatting shit on a podcast, because I could phone you and we could chat shit. So that would be between us. But if this is something that people could see value in, let's say, we're more than welcome to offer advice or suggestions or anything that you want to see or hear from, and we'll do our best to accommodate that too. But fundamentally, for the guys that are in here, would you come back if we said next week, for instance, we've got the head of the GI Yaris Rally 2 project coming back? Do you want to come back and listen to him? I'm not saying that's happening, but it's a potential. Me or Phil? Wow. I'm not sure if that's something you'd come back for. Like, if you would come back for it, then great. But let us know. As I say, we want to make this work, but we need to know how to make it work, because we really have no idea what we're doing with
it. I don't know if you have any idea, but I don't actually have any idea. So I have to take this one. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lewis, topic in a Q&A section, absolutely. Q&A is something that we want to do. We want this to be interactive. As I say, we could sit and talk about stuff all day long. It's not going to achieve anything. There's no point doing that if it's just a conversation between us. Q&A sessions, absolutely. And as I said at the start of the podcast as well, if it's questions that we can't answer, I will happily take stuff away and try and find out for you as well. Like, I'm not going to bullshit you and lie about stuff that I don't know. So if you put me on the spot, or Phil, then we'll quite happily take it away and find out for you too.
What's the one comment was there in Cyrillian? Is that? How do you say that?
I don't know.
Cyrillisch? I don't know. I also do speak German. So, wenn ihr eine Frage habt, könnt ihr die auch auf Deutsch stellen oder Schweizerdeutsch, was euch lieber ist. Scott, alles auch, or just English, whatever you like. But the podcast is gonna be in English. So, but I also do speak or understand German.
I know about the spaghetti. I know about the spaghetti Bolognese. That's it's der längste Nudel der Welt. That's about all I can really say. So that's about all I can say, unfortunately.
Exactly. So. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know the exact moment. I think I could even put a date on it when everything went downhill. It was when I got involved with Kotouch gearboxes. I know Neil since my days with the Evo, so I think more than 10 years ago, and I met them at Autosport Cologne again. We were talking before that already about the gearbox they developed. And so that's as soon as it became clear that I'm gonna take one of their or get one of their gearboxes for the GR, it was clear that this car isn't gonna be road legal anymore. And that's when it started to really, really escalate, because before that, it was very important to me, as you already said, that it's road legal and that I can drive it on the road in Switzerland. And Switzerland has quite harsh rules for that, and the fines are very, very expensive.
They're so harsh that if I go to Germany or to Italy, I'm going to be avoiding Switzerland. I'm going to take a big detour and go around because I'm not even risking going into Switzerland.
That's if you come to Switzerland, you better have a partly decent car, and so that's the exact moment when I decided to take it off the road and go full on race car. And from there on out, it was just a downwards spiral, and it kind of got out of control a little bit.
Phil, do you want to? I think Russian Rock is, I presume, he's asking for an answer in German to his as well. But how do you want to work this? I don't mind if you do need to go off on a tangent in German. Like, by all means, if that helps you with engagement and helps you answer questions, then feel free. Like, I'll happily sit back and let you chat away.
I can answer it a little bit in German, or very shortly in German. Der Moment, als ich entschieden habe, nicht mehr auf der Straße zu fahren, sondern nur noch rein auf der Rennstrecke, war mit Kotouch Getrieben, als ich entschieden habe, ein vollsequenzielles Getriebe einzubauen. Und das war der Moment, als ich entschieden habe, ja, auf der Straße fahren kann ich nicht mehr. Deswegen jetzt nur noch auf der Rennstrecke. So that's basically it. I think it didn't come on.
Wonderful. Lewis, again, debunking episode. Common misunderstandings. So my concern.
That's actually a good idea.
It is.
There's a lot of stuff going on in that category. So
it's so it's a difficult one because some of it would be subjective, some of it would be opinions. So we need to kind of be wary of, some people have different opinions of how a car should be built or how a car should be run.
Sorry.
No, there's an elephant in the room with this. There's obviously recent events with some cars people are questioning. And it's difficult to say what's opinion and what's actually fact, because, for instance, take a common question, stock internals on a GR Yaris. Like, what's the limits of them? Honestly, I can't tell you what the limit is. I know from experience with the guys that I've worked with what they also think is the limits, but you're going to have disagreements in that. So something like that, I don't think we could debunk. We could potentially take popular questions about the Yaris or popular, things people want to know about the car that are easy to answer. I don't want to get into the habit of being too opinionated on things. I like to keep it factual. So it's a good suggestion, but we'd have to kind of be a bit careful with the questions, I think.
And obviously also with the answers, because also for me, it's not I never blown an engine, so I don't actually know where the limit is. I know from a few people where the limit could be, or some stuff that suggests where the limit will be, but it's also very depending on how you use the car.
Yeah,
I mean, if you just use the car to drive around the town and have it in pops and bangs, it will live for much, much longer than if you actually race the car once a month.
Yeah, I mean, we had this chat at Acme as well about your car, because obviously 450 horsepower isn't as fast as it could go. But do you want to get over 500 horsepower if you need to go and do 20, 30, 40 laps in a day and then risk potentially blowing something up? Sometimes it's better to scale back and have it a bit more reliable. So in that sense, I've never blown an engine either. I've blown a turbo. Again, that was, I think, my fault. I've had a clutch fail. I've had all sorts go wrong. But these were more due to individual issues rather than an actual limit being reached. So for me to say what the actual limit is difficult, because all I know is what I've been told. I mean, like Acme are very experienced. They've done over 200 cars. They have a good idea of what these cars do, but I don't. So I can only really repeat what I've been told, because I'm not at the stage that I'm pushing these limits and testing these things. So yeah, again, I know we're going a bit off topic here, but for me, it's just, again, just avoiding opinion, trying to be factual, not committing to saying things that aren't true or could be proven to be wrong. Because I'd hate to say something, somebody takes something we say, goes and does something based on information we give, then something happens. I'd hate to be responsible for that. But smaller things, definitely, like if there are misunderstandings out there, if there's anything people doesn't get about the car or the way it works or the history of the car or the racing or anything like that, again, go back to what I said earlier. I'll happily take that away and find an answer if I can't answer it myself, or if you can't answer it. I'm quite happy to do that if it's helping other people.
Yeah. Do you still have TPMS on the car?
No.
Yeah,
I do not. That went in the bin. You know, I actually broke my TPMS sensors because I didn't break them. I had my stock wheels when I bought the car, and I always wanted a set of Enkei NTO3 plus M's. I had a load of hassle fitting them. This is when I found out on the forums about needing extended studs, about needing like nuts with extended shanks for more thread engagement and things. I remember you talking about your wedge sports at the time, the TC105s. You had similar things where you had to fit longer studs, and it was a whole mess trying to get these to work. And then by the time I got them fitted and on the car, my AliExpress sensors, you have the tire stem by the valve, and the sensor sits underneath it, and there's a screw that holds it to the valve. Didn't tighten any of them. So after about a week, all four wheels, every time they turned, they went clunk, clunk, because all the sensors were bouncing around inside the wheel. So that was a waste of money. So I just left them, took them off and just left them and never fitted them again. And I've got an inflator, I've got a pressure gauge in the car, so I just use them now. Do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I know when I threw mine out was when I fitted like the third or fourth set of wheels, and when it just became nearly impossible to have don't have the error on the dash, because it took so long until they are recognized by the car. Because apparently, that's not factual, it's just apparently, you can only have 2 sets of sensors.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure I've seen that on TechStream. You can have 2 sets.
And that's when I have had the third one. It was just,
So I think you can get sensors that you can clone the codes. OEM once you can swap them, then it should pick them up.
You could reuse the sensors. I mean, not that many people have more than 2 sets of wheels. So, and actually the stock sensors, I don't know how much they are in the UK, but in Switzerland they're like 450 something a piece.
Each?
Yeah.
Well, is that French though? So what would that be?
So that's the same in euros.
Wow, I'm sure they're only about 120 pound or so here. I say only, still a lot.
I think 400 something. It was. I wanted to order them, but I was quite shocked when I heard that number. So
I think what they'll do is that you can program, but again, you need a programming tool to do that as well. So yeah. Again, we're just going off on a tangent. Is there anything else anybody wants to know whilst we're here? I know we said we're going to try and keep this to half an hour for the first one, just because we just end up being a couple of old men rambling on about unrelated things which we've already started doing. Is there anything else anybody else wants to know though? By all means, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Or until next week.
Yeah.
Or depending.
Oh, £780 for a set fitted by Toyota for TPMS.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, so £780, that's like 900, around 900 Swiss francs, 900 euros. So
yeah, the AliExpress ones I had, they worked fine. I just forgot to tighten the screws on them and they fell off and then they didn't work anymore. Hello, Chloe.
Will you wear wigs? Yeah.
When will you wear wigs?
Yeah.
In fact, do you know what? You you have my wig, so I can't wear it because you've got it. Not you, Chloe. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't have
Egon. Hello, Egon. Egon. Nice of you to join us.
Hi. Yeah.
Mark II GR. So, Phil, you've already mentioned the Mark II GR, haven't you, on a video? I don't think you were too interested in working with it, were you?
Yeah. The thing is, I would love to have one, actually, but I think it's at the moment it's just not financially possible to buy one because there are a few things in the future or in the coming month that need a lot of money, so I don't gonna buy one. But I would love to work with them because I think they have a lot of potential because of the new engine and everything. So I think that's gonna be cool. And I'm also very interested in the 8-speed gearbox, in the 8-speed automatic, to be honest.
It'd be interesting because I think it's a torque converter as well, isn't it? Rather than the dual clutch. So it'd be interesting to see how it performs under pressure. Also, again, the engine, like Saito-san, the entire R&D team at Toyota have been very, very clear about the fact that they appreciate people breaking things. I had a call off him a few months ago, and it was funny because he literally said, "Thanks for breaking the car," because it does actually help them. It helps them to obviously develop things. I know they've revised between the Corolla and the new Yaris. They've got new engine internals. They've done valve train work. They've done pistons, rods. They've done all sorts. But this is based off of basically mass testing by the people that already have the cars, who have fed back and said we have issues with this, this, and this. And they're responding to that. They are developing and making things better based on the feedback. So that is good. Lewis, just following on question, what about the Mark II GR you're looking forward to being able to potentially pinch? Honestly, I'm at the stage personally where I don't think there's anything with these cars that would benefit me. The work involved to use the pistons and rods, for instance. Why not just fit IRP pistons and rods? Why use OEM ones when I could fit forged, upgraded ones? And I think you're probably in a similar position too. You've replaced that much at this point that there's not much that you could use from the new car to fit into your current car. So for me personally, it was never even a question. Toyota UK asked if I wanted to be on the list to bid for one of the new ones, and I just didn't see the point. I'm so deep into my car just now. There's no reason really to change it. So I'll be starting again. We don't know as well what would be transferable. So things like the sequentials and the Cyvex. Do we know if the Cyvex will work with the dash in the new one? What's changed with the BCMs? We don't know that at this stage. So you couldn't even say you could just move your parts onto a new car. So for me, I'll keep the one I've got. And if the new one's better, then great. Like I'm happy for the people getting them, but it seems a bit of a pointless change for me now. Also, we have noticed we are getting a few questions coming in, so we will try and touch on everybody if we can. If we haven't picked up straight away, please hang about.
Let me answer one question. The brake caliper seals, if that is a warranty issue. If the rest of the car is completely stock, the whole car is completely stock, I think you have a good chance to get it with a warranty claim, because changing of them isn't that hard for a Toyota workshop. So I think that could be all right. If you have the car mapped or anything else changed, I think it's going to be a hard time to have them change them on under warranty. But yeah, I would try it.
What I would ask though is, in fact, I think you're in the UK anyway, Phil. So in the UK, they have been quite good at honouring track warranties. So I know part of the marketing with the GR was that you could use it on track and they would honour the warranty, which a lot of countries are pushing back on. But in the UK, you've probably got a good chance. But these melt so quickly. Like I personally, I don't know if you're using them, Phil, but BCB do an upgraded kit, which is a silicon boots and the stainless steel pistons. And my caliper temperatures have reached nearly 300 degrees and they're fine. So they have been a good upgrade. My OEM ones were trash after like 2 track days. Yeah. But if you replace them with rubber ones, you're going to have the same problem. So you might get them replaced, but you might find that in a few track days they are melted again. So how many times do you need to go back to Toyota to have them replaced? Something like that. If you're serious about tracking the car, I would strongly suggest warranty is the first time, but if it happens again, then potentially look at upgrading because I don't really think they're fit for high temperatures, consistently high temperatures. But try them. I would ask, because people have had all sorts replaced under warranty. There's people who have had brake discs replaced for being squeaky. Max, I'm looking at you. He had his entire braking system replaced because the brakes were squeaking. People get that, but then you get other people that go with other issues and turn around and say, no, you can't have a warranty claim. So it's very inconsistent. And this is, again, going off topic slightly, but this is part of the conversation that I had with the Toyota R&D guys in Japan was they're really interested in development. They want to hear about problems. They want to hear about feedback from what breaks on the car. But the corporate side of Toyota doesn't want to know because all they can see is how much money it's going to cost to fix things that are broken. So they don't want to admit there's a fault. So on the one hand, you've got Toyota R&D, they're saying, please let us know if you have problems. And then you've got Toyota GB, they're saying there are no problems. So there's a not very good communication. And I know Toyota have said they are trying to work on that because in Japan, they're very closely intertwined. They work with each other. Whereas in the UK and in the Western world, there's a big disconnect where all they can see is money and profits and margins, and they don't want to admit issues. Case in point, my gearbox, when that died on track, I ended up going the sequential route. I need to name drop X Shift because you've mentioned Cotouch, so I need to make sure we balance the books here. But so when I replaced mine, I said to Toyota, do you want my gearbox just for research, basically? Do you want to see what happened to it? Don't need a warranty claim. I have a new gearbox. Would you like to take this for your own kind of records? I don't want anything. Just take it. And they went, no, there's no problems. And I was like, there is. That's why it's broken. But okay, so it is a weird one. So I was going back to what you were saying about brake disc, the dust seals. I would try for a warranty claim, but long term, you're probably looking at having to upgrade them if you're going to track the car regularly.
He already said he bought the BCP seals and the titanium shims. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, I had endless pads in my the stock with the stock brakes, endless pads and the titanium shims, and I never had any issues with melted dust boots. So maybe maybe that helped solving it, and also the extended brake cooling ducts.
Yes,
I think they helped as well.
Henshin product placement for him. So Daniel at Henshin makes 3D printed brake ducts, and they do help quite a lot. Probably good 20, 30 degrees or so. The temperatures I've noticed they do help really well. So what else have we got to catch up?
He said one guy said we should read the questions out loud. That's actually a very, very good idea.
I like the fact that you read his statement out saying we should read the questions out loud. That was nice. Yeah. Breaking the fourth wall. Retrofit. Blocks.
What's able to retrofit to the Mark 1? And also, if you want to change from the Mark 1 to the Mark 2, I don't think if you have a Mark 1, I don't think you need to upgrade to a Mark 2, except you want an automatic gearbox. Other than that, I don't think there's really a necessity to change the cars. To retrofit, I don't know what will be possible. Maybe the seat frame, because if they changed something at the seat, maybe that would be possible, but I don't know what they changed. I have to see a car in person to check what they changed to lower the seat. Other than that, I don't think many parts will be or you won't benefit from changing them?
No. I think I touched on this a minute ago as well, where any parts that are worth upgrading to, so engine internals, for instance, or gearbox parts or anything like that, there are better options. If you're going to open an engine up to do this work, there are better options on the market than buying OEM parts. So if you fitted Mark II Yaris, we'll call it the Mark II to make it easy. If you fitted Mark II Yaris rods and pistons to a Mark I Yaris, yes, they would be an improvement, they would be stronger, but you've also avoided your warranty because they're still non-original parts that haven't been installed by Toyota. So if you're doing that, you may as well go down the road of IRP, for instance, and having proper forged, like heavy duty pistons and rods. If you were going to do the upgrade, it's because you're chasing power, presumably. So if you're chasing power, you should probably get something aftermarket that's going to be better.
Anyway.
The Toyota stuff is still designed with being a road car. Like, it's more durable, but it's still just a road car. So you're still going to have limits there before you would have with aftermarket parts.
And if your goal is 340, 360 horsepower, then even the stock Mark I parts aren't really any issue. So
750 horsepower.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Naughty. Adrian Viren, hi guys. In South Africa, we have 95 octane pump fuel. We normally use 102 octane, and tuned GR feels so much better. Yeah, absolutely. Any good tuner should be tuning for the fuel as well, though. So they should be asking you what octane you want to use. You can have a good tune on 95. It won't be as quick as a 102 tune. However, personally, mentally, I don't like the idea of having a car that's tuned for 100 or 102 octane fuel and then filling it with 95 and relying on the knock sensor to protect the engine.
Yeah.
I would rather have the engine tuned with the correct fuel in the first place, tune it for 95. On my car, I mean, I'm fortunate to have switchable maps on my car. So depending where I am, if I'm in the north of Scotland where I can't get premium fuel a lot of the time, if I'm using 95, I can put it on the 95 map. Pulls all the timing out. It's a lot slower, but I know the car's tuned to be safe. Rather than if I ran a 101 map, put 95 in, and then ran it, and then a wide open throttle, if you get a spike or if you get a knock event or something happens and you're relying on the knock sensor, that's when you start to see catastrophic piston failures and things. So yes, the 102 octane is definitely quicker, but make sure you tune for that as well, because you don't want to tune for a higher one fuel and then go down to a 95 and then find out you've lost an engine. If you have the option, in fact, Ecotec do it now as well. Ecotec do switchable maps. So even on the stock ECU, that's now an option for everybody too. But yeah, definitely there is a big difference between 95 and even 98, 99. It's really noticeable.
We had on one of our dyno days, we had like 5 or 6 cars, basically all stock cars, which we mapped then. And one guy came with actually 95 in the tank, and the other one had some 98 from a, how do you say, cheap gas station, and another guy had 102. And the power difference between the 95 to the 98 was around 10 horsepower on a stock car, and then another nearly 10 horsepower from the normal or the cheap 98 to the 102. So even on stock, it was a hot day, but even on a stock car, you can actually see a difference between the different fuels. And if you have a mapped car, then the difference is going to be even greater.
I think obviously OEM cars have headroom built into the maps anyway, and they need to allow for variances in fuel quality. At the end of the day, an OEM has to build a car that will work everywhere. So they need to be able to allow for cars. Basically, you need to have as little timing as possible to get away with using a 95 fuel or a poor quality fuel, because they can't have road cars in the thousands all failing because people aren't putting premium fuel in them. But by doing that, it also means they're not adding as much timing as they could with a better quality of fuel. So they're not getting the most performance. That's how with turbo cars, there's quite a lot of power to be made quite easily just by turning the boost up a bit and adding some time to it, because there's lots of headroom there, because manufacturers play it safe. But that's when you get to the point of warranties and engine failures, and how far do you go before you start really pushing your luck? Which leads me on to the next question I want to touch, which is Martin's, what upgrades do you recommend without voiding the warranty? Warranty is such a grey area. It depends very much. So the way the warranties work is your dealer will go to Toyota and say, we have a car here with these issues. Will you honour the warranty? Because the dealer has to do the work and then back charge Toyota to pay the dealer to do the works. Even though they're part of the Toyota network, Toyota GB decides whether or not it can be a warranty repair. some dealerships will help you. Some dealerships will look at modifications on a car and be like, that's clearly not caused the problem. You could have an exhaust fitted to your car, but then you go in because your air conditioning stopped working. Clearly, they're not related to each other. So clearly, I think the burden of proof is on manufacturers to say your modifications caused the fault. It's just, if then you fit an exhaust and then you start having, I don't know, maybe you start having overfueling issues, or maybe you start having issues with holes getting blown through manifolds and things, that's when they could look at that system and be like, well, has this caused the problem? So it's a very moral grey area. But if they can prove that your parts have caused the fault, then obviously they'll void the warranty claim. So it makes it difficult to recommend modifications that don't void a warranty, because it's very subjective. You could fit, say, aftermarket seats, and you could go to a dealer and say, my engine's blown up. And Toyota could look at your seats and say, well, you've modified your car.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with it. You and I know it's got nothing to do with it. So it's difficult to say what will and won't void a warranty, because some places will be fine, other places won't want to touch the car. So yeah, it's a big grey area. Usually, though, I think normally you'll get away with intake, exhaust, wheels, springs, that kind of thing. But the risk is always there that if something fails that could be related to your parts, they'll just refuse to pay out. Because why should you pay thousands of pounds to fix your car when we've got an opportunity not to do a business? At the end of the day, they're not your friends. They are trying to make money, not give it away.
Yeah. There was another question. What was it? Genau. Are there parts you are looking forward to fitting to your cars next? I actually look at some of the parts I'm gonna fit next. It's sway bars and
K-shock,
yeah, exactly.
handle and buttons,
and, handle and stuff. Yeah, exactly. More green. But actually, for the performance of the car, it's sway bars, front and back, and engine mount on passenger on the right hand side of the car. So actually engine, not gearbox mount. I have billet ones, or partly billet. Others are.
I say they're not solid, are they? You still have poly bushes in the billet, aren't you?
Yeah, kinda.
Right. Okay.
They have bushes inside, but they're nearly fixed. So that's gonna be harsh. Yeah, that's actually it.
It's interesting you mentioned sway bars, because they are also on my radar. Is the stream still there? Is mine just buffering? Yeah, the video's still there. So sway bars have come to mind after a recent track day as well. You're on the Erlins riding track. Is it the Swedish version you have as well, or the Japanese?
No, it's it's actually a custom version I have.
What spring rates do you have? Is it still the 8 kilo springs?
No, I think it's 25% stiffer, the damper and the springs.
Okay.
So I have modified dampers as well.
I see.
But so it was all right with the stock car or stock aero, and now with the big aero, I can feel the corner speeds are increasing a lot, and that I can feel that the car is now leaning into the corner or rolling too much. The rest is perfectly fine. The dampening, I love it, but it rolls a little bit too much for me. So that's why the sway bars.
Exactly what I've looked, because the pitching, the squatting and the pitching of the car under obviously braking acceleration. I enjoy how the car moves still. I'm still on the 8 kilo springs, the standard Swedish Öhlins system. But again, medium to high speed corners, I just find the car's just tipping over that bit more than I want it to. So I've been looking at the anti-roll bars as well. Also, I'm really excited about this. I can't say much because I'm under an NDA, but I've got a few things that a couple of places are asking me to test for them over the next few track days and things, which if they go well, then I'm really excited about them, but we'll see. I'm very data driven now, so I like to install parts now and then go back to tracks, repeat my laps, see where the time's coming from. Looking at, obviously, you've got hypothetical best laps, you've got cornering Gs, you've got all sorts of data you can look at. Tire temperature thermometers, tread depth measurements, all sorts of just spreadsheet crazy now. But it's cool because it means I can test stuff and now see incremental gains. And then if something doesn't work, go backwards, go back to what you had before. But if it does work, keep it and build from there. Lewis, Car and Mechanical in the chat, I spoke to him yesterday about this. I think people are guilty of throwing too many things at a car and hoping for the best. Whereas now I've got to a point, and you're probably the same. You know your car really well, so now you know that just by changing one thing, you can probably find a bit of time. Whereas if you bought a Yaris and then said, I want a sequential gearbox, and I want coilovers, and I want roll bars, and I want bottom arms, and I want this, this, and this, and this, and you go out on a track and you're slow because all of a sudden your setup is awful. I think people get a bit too overwhelmed with that stuff. So now, personally, I'm going to be incrementally changing things, looking for improvements, and then if they don't come, like I said, there's no shame in going backwards and reversing your setup and going back to what you had before. But yeah, I've got a couple of things that when I can say more, I will say more. But at the minute, yeah, it's a couple of things I'm quite excited to try. Yeah. So where we catch up to on these questions.
Okay. How does it compare to my old Evo? Yeah. Honestly, it's a completely different. It's on a completely different level. The Evo had roughly 750 horsepower and was 1100 kilos race ready. And I had 295s semis all around, and it had huge aero. Even I have now roughly 2000 hours of work in the GR. We put roughly 2000 hours of work into the chassis and suspension development of the Evo. So it's a completely different car. And the Evo actually pulled 2.2 or 2.3 Gs in a corner on semi-slicks. So
2.2 Gs in the corner.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. So if anybody's not aware, to compare to that, the kind of mid-range semi-slicks I'm using in the Yaris now, I'm doing about 1.3 to 1.4 Gs in the corner. And that's not a slow car. So 2.2 is crazy.
Yeah. That was really, yeah. So it's a completely different car. And actually I enjoy the GR much more now because it's so much easier to drive and also to maintain. And hopefully also much, much cheaper in the future. So, you want to read the next one?
Yeah. So,
exhaust.
I'm gonna pick an easy one. Adrian, does exposing the forged carbon roof and wrapping it with clear PPF void the corrosion warranty in your country? In South Africa, it does. So that's interesting because I would imagine South Africa is a bit drier than it is in Scotland. I've not heard of anybody having a claim refused, but at the same time, I don't think cars are really getting to the stage yet where they are corroding to the point they're needing warranty work being done on them. I know the cars that came to the UK, they weren't under sealed, they weren't protected at all. So the next few years, my car's already brown underneath. It's already disgusting, but it rains 200 days a year here, so I'm not surprised by that. I would be surprised if places won't honour warranties based on the roof, because again, the roof's not going to corrode either. It's carbon. You might get a bit of galvanic corrosion around the edges, but I don't see how it would affect it. But we touched on the warranty stuff before as well. It's subjective. So if you go to one dealer, they might think that's absolutely fine. It's got nothing to do with the parts. So if you have a rusty wheel arch and you've got a roof that's had exposed carbon, it's clearly got nothing to do with it. So in theory, it should be okay. But you go to another dealer and they'll go, your car's modified. Sorry, we're not helping you. So yeah, it's hard to say because it's very subjective here.
Opinion about exhausts. What's your opinion on, say, 70 millimeters and 76 millimeters? And what about having a downpipe whilst the OPF or GPF is still installed? Somebody claimed there's no sense to a downpipe and GPF. So now we're coming into non-factual territory. I think with the amount of power the car makes, 70 millimeter is okay until above 350 horsepower-ish. Everything above that might need or benefit from a full 3-inch exhaust. The GPF or OPF in German, it's gonna be an issue after 340 horsepower. We mapped a couple of cars, and when you remove the GPF, it's gonna bring roughly 10 horsepower. So, and especially if you go a lot higher in horsepower, it's gonna benefit, or the car's gonna benefit if you don't have it.
So this is, sorry to interrupt. OPFs are an interesting one. So in Japan, obviously they don't use the OPF. They don't have a legal requirement for one. So the Japanese cars make more power from the factory. There is clearly restriction there. What's interesting in the UK now is there are new laws that have come into place, and they might be old laws that they're now enforcing, where garages and shops can't sell things like decats and they can't sell OPF bypasses or anything because it's now illegal to do that. So these companies have already been fined for doing so. So with Ecutech, there's a couple of garages in the UK are now mapping cars, and they're claiming they're still hitting 380 with the original cat, which sounds a lot to me. But again, I'm not there. I'm not testing these cars. We only have the numbers that they publish, and it's what these people are saying. People seem to think you can still make nearly 400 horsepower with the standard downpipe and OPF still in place. Which, if you can, great. Personally, again, opinion again, but that sounds like a lot of heat and a lot of back pressure for that kind of power with that restriction in the exhaust. How long that will last, I don't know. But the fact it's possible is good, because now that places are clamping down on emission stuff, like we can't all have race cars and we can't all say fuck the police and drive around with decats on our cars everywhere, because at the end of the day, it's going to catch up with you at some point. So yeah, it's interesting to see, but personally, from an engineering point of view, it doesn't sound right to me. But we'll just have to see what happens as tuning develops, and obviously Ecutech are making big steps forward at the minute. That's what it's been done on. That's what they say is possible. So you have to believe these companies, because that's what they're selling at the end of the day. And then we'll see what happens.
So the next one is about intake intercooler. Can they be too big and inducing turbo lag?
Yep.
Heard that the Venturi intake and the Wagner intercooler are for 400 horsepower plus. Yeah, I think, also personal opinion, there are things that are too big for a stock car, because everything that's on the car is designed for the power that it makes. And if you double the power, most likely you need double everything. But if you just increase 20-30% the power, I think you're gonna be fine with a lot of OEM stuff. But
that when it comes to
too big and turbo lag, when you I actually had that talk a couple of years back with an engineering friend of mine, and then he calculated the amount of air that's going through the intake and everything. Yeah, so while technically it's possible, I don't know if there are any actual kits on the market where you will really have turbo lag. I think it's more of an issue. Are there?
Yeah. So personal experience with this. So I work with AirTech. They've helped me out with a few parts
for
the car.
The full height
they have
size.
A gigantic intercooler.
Yeah.
Okay. They reached out to me.
I'm talking about reasonably sized intercooler.
No, I'm talking about excess. Everything I do is excessive. So I'm fortunate to work with AirTech, and I actually bought their stage 1 into stage tuning. I know I'm going to have an old man rant here, but it's not stages. In my days, it was, yeah. So we call it stage 1 just because it's easier to reference certain sizes of things. So their stage 1 intercooler, and it was great, works really well. But they reached out to me after about a year and said, hey, we have this new one coming, and it's massive. And it's like, it replaces the full crash bar at the front. It bolts to the chassis legs. It is gigantic. And on the standard turbo, I really noticed the difference. Now, the temperatures were great. It really helped with charge temperatures, but the sheer size of this thing meant it obviously takes that bit more time for it to pressurize from the turbo. Every time you change gear and you dump all the pressure out of the intake system, it takes that little split second and you do start to notice it. However, now I'm on the hybrid turbo, it helps a lot, because that turbo spools so quickly now and it forces so much air through that I don't perceive any real lag anymore. And anybody that goes to like a G25 or a G30 frame is probably going to be in the same position too. But for a stock turbo, definitely overkill. Like, you don't have to go stage 3 everything on a standard car. Like, you can get something that's better than OEM. It doesn't have to be the biggest and best thing you get. What else was I going to say on this? Well, intakes as well. So the Eventuri, obviously, they're the benchmark. Anybody talks to an intake for a Yaris, Eventuri is the one that's up there that everyone talks about. They played a blinder with the marketing for that because they had loads of videos out about all the data and all the things it's done, and they've managed to sell 1,500 quid intakes to almost everybody. Like they've done great off them. But when you look at the actual data on a standard car, it doesn't really do much. So they're talking about the temperatures and the difference in charge temperature, which is obviously your air comes into the intake through the turbo, it heats up, goes through the intercooler, it then condenses and cools down again, and then into your intake manifold and into the engine. And even though they saw about a 20-degree Celsius reduction at the intake, their actual charge temperature going into the engine was less than 10 degrees of a difference because the OEM intercooler does such a good job at cooling down the charge temperature. So for a standard car, the intake's not going to do too much for helping with temperatures and things. But again, when you move to bigger turbos with, even with a tune with more boost pressure, go up to 1.92 bar, it will help then. But for most people who are just fitting bolt-ons, you probably won't notice much of a difference, to be honest.
Yeah. And we're not going to talk about that right now.
Hang on as well. Stage 2 intercooler, AirTech don't do a stage 2. They only have the stage 1 and the stage 3. I don't know why it's not a stage 2, but it's just a marketing exercise. Just the names of them. They either have the little one or they have the big one. And the big one for a hybrid turbo, it's fine, but for a standard one, it's probably overkill. I don't think you need it. Martin, intakes. Whilst we're still talking about intakes, personal experience, I one of the ones that I can tell you that I'm going to fit is the Ram Air have a enclosed carbon intake, which is arriving soon. And I'm hoping to have that on for the track day next week. I've obviously had different sizes of intakes. I made my own intake. I've gone from 3-inch to 4-inch to 6-inch to all kinds of hard pipes and silicon pipes and all sorts. The best thing that you can do for noise personally is a hard piped intake, and you keep the size down to about a 3-inch. Even Shuri's got that for the back pipe. MST, it's a bit of an open filter, which isn't ideal for heat soak, but a lot of these intakes, though, open ones sound better, but they perform worse. Like the heat soak's awful, which is why I'm going to the Ram Air ProRam intake, because I need to enclose it because there's too much heat coming from the engine bay into the intake system. There's, in fact, Tegua, however you pronounce it, I'm sure they have a video comparing different intakes. So if you're looking for sound clips, there should be something on YouTube from Tegua who have compared them all. So maybe have a look for that.
Yeah.
We need to iron out these awkward pauses in between conversations. We need to find a way to segue into the next one instead of sitting here and going.
Yeah, the HJS downpipe. I'm a huge fan of the HJS downpipe. We fitted like, I don't know, 30 maybe, and they increase power a little bit. They increase sound a little bit, but it's fully street legal, and that's why I'm a huge fan of it, because you can have it here in Switzerland and it's fully street legal. And it's actually the only part at the GR in Switzerland which you can have street legal and still makes power. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of that.
The way the world's going as well with clamping down on emissions, Euro 6 regulations, MOT's changed in the UK now as well. Like, I think we're getting to the point where you can't just fit a decat now and pretend that it's fine. I think it's definitely worth looking. If you are serious about tuning a sports cap, keep it legal. Avoid any issues, because the last thing you want is to go out and drive your car and have it taken off you because you've wanted to save a few hundred quid. And a decat, I've driven on a decat. It's noisy, it's obnoxious, it's stressful to drive with because, I mean, we did a journey recently, it was like 300 miles each way. Had to wear air defenders because of the exhaust noise. It's crazy loud when you take the cat out. So with hindsight, I would have gone straight to a sports cat, kept it legal, kept the noise down a bit as well. And you still get 99, 98% of the performance of a decat, sometimes a bit more because you have a bit of back pressure can sometimes help with the wastegate as well. So yeah, sports cat's probably the way to go.
Honestly, in the beginning of the GR, while it was still street legal, when I got to the racetrack, I had the only two things I changed was the intake, because I had the C-Tech intake, and I had a full decat and the GPF exhaust. So I changed the complete exhaust and the intake. And when I got back from track, I changed the exhaust to the HJS downpipe, and the rest was fully stock exhaust and the full stock intake. And we had roughly 360 horsepower on the dyno, because I wanted to dyno it with stock intake and HJS downpipe and stock exhaust, and we had roughly 360 horsepower. With the CTEC intake and the fully decatted exhaust, it was 395 something.
Well, so, it's still noticeable gain then.
Yeah. It's
interesting.
The gain was very good, but also the 360 horsepower on the street, it was very fun to drive and more than enough for a fully street legal car.
And another tangent. Another tangent I want to go on with this as well is street legal cars. We're seeing some really big power builds out there now. Like in the UK, we've got like at least 3 cars above 600 horsepower. There's guys in Europe that are above 600 horsepower with cars now.
Yeah,
it's pointless on the road. It really is, because you're driving around at half throttle all the time. So you're stressing these engines to the point that you're maybe going to hit reliability issues. Don't know. But to drive on the road, realistically, you're not going to be full throttle everywhere. You're not, like, if you are, you're an idiot, basically, because it's too fast. Like 400, for me personally, 350, 400 horsepower, it's a good car to drive on the road. It feels nice, it's quick enough, and it's not going to kill you either. So that's probably where I'd end up. In fact, that's where I have ended up, actually. So, yeah. A few more comments coming as well, just to catch up.
Yeah, I'm going to answer the last one. How long does it going to take to change the downpipe in a shop? With a 20-minute test drive, we need now roughly 3 hours to completely change it. From the moment the car is in our workshop until you can take it back with a test drive and checking everything twice on the lift, it takes 3 hours. But
just for the
first ones we changed was like 4 hours, so we got a little bit faster.
Let's stop talking about exhaust. Let's talk about something else. We've talked about exhaust for a long time, and I know there's some very, very specific questions about setups as well. Honestly, without trying them, it'd be difficult to tell you what would work and what wouldn't work, because there's so many good kits on the market. I think go with your heart and your budget. Not everybody has £1,500 for an Eva Jury. Some people have £400 for a Pipercross one, whatever the equivalent is. So fit your budget, but don't spend all your money on something that maybe makes an extra 2 horsepower. It's not going to make that much difference. Just buy what's right for you. If you want the best of the best and you can afford it, then do it. But it's not necessary, honestly. So to change it up slightly, Dark LZO, Dark LZO, any must address geometry changes or understeer issues. So I know, Phil, you do your own setup in the shop. I unfortunately can't do it myself. I use the garage near me to do it. But one thing we found from the factory is that the OEM alignment is awful. Like, there's so much variance in what people are seeing.
And they're all different.
Yeah,
they haven't measured 2 cars which are exactly the same, not one.
So the PDI, pre-delivery inspection, as we call it in the UK, this apparently isn't on the PDI. So these cars are getting bumped onto transporters and they're getting shipped around the world on boats and all sorts. And then when they arrive, they're not being set up with any specific alignment. So I have a setup I like. Phil, you have a setup you like as well. Again, it's subjective. Personally, I prefer toe out at the front, neutral rear, more camber at the front as well. And I feel that helps with turning and grip in corners. Some people will be different. Some people will say they want more camber, less camber. Yeah. The best way to approach it, in my opinion, is to decide what you want the car to do and then look into how you want to achieve that. Because if I tell you how to set the car up, you might not like how it drives, but I do. But then Phil tells you how to set it up, and then you do like the way it drives. But who's right out of the two of us? Like, there's no objective answer to that. Same in Formula One. Look at Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. They drive the same car. One is clearly quicker than the other because they have their own setups and things. Obviously, driver ability too. But what works for one guy doesn't necessarily work for the other. Like, you could steal your alignment settings from the other side of the garage, but not be as fast as them because you just don't like the way that it drives. So my approach would be to find what you like. If you don't like understeer, I'd experiment with potentially running some toe out and a bit more camber. See if that helps you get the front end round. You can also then look at stiffer rear as well, help the rear to rotate, like a stiffer anti-roll bar. Maybe that's the problem is. Maybe it's not the front end. Maybe it is just the car refusing to turn. So you have the grip at the front, but you don't have the kind of movement in the rear that you want. But best thing to do is find somebody local who's good with suspension stuff.
Yeah.
Decide what you want the car to do and get personalized advice from them. Because say my setup might not work for you.
And one thing I want to add is tire pressure. Just look at how the tire pressure is in stock and then change it to, if you want to have more oversteer, try 0.1 bar more at the back than in the front, and maybe that changes the car just enough for you to like it again. Pineapple on pizza.
Yes. So Chloe's been hilarious as she always is. So we can move on from that. Egon as well. It's like going pineapple on pizza is like going to a brothel and just saying hello. I wouldn't know. I don't even know what a brothel is. So you'll have to explain that, Egon, if you want to let everyone know in the chat. Let's see.
3-bar tire pressure.
Wow.
And one guy just wrote his GR came with a 3-bar tire pressure, and
Yeah,
I'm actually not that surprised.
So the lesson to be learned here is don't trust garages if you're serious about the car. But that also makes me wonder if somebody's test driven a car, but the car's not been aligned properly. Like alignment can make a big difference to how a car feels. So maybe people that have been unimpressed with a car have driven one that's been set up badly, or it's not been set up at all.
Yeah.
And then if you drive one that's aligned properly, maybe all of a sudden they'll like the car. But yeah, I don't trust dealers. That's my advice. Some dealers know what they're doing, but find a good independent. Somebody like String Theory in the UK, Bennett String Theory knows a lot about how to set a car up. If you go to someone like him and say, I want to do this, he'll say, yep, no problem, we'll sort it for you. And when you see those before shots of the alignment before they get set up, it's quite scary. So, no pineapple, Alcantara steering wheel. Adrian Viren recovered my 2021 steering wheel on Alcantara. Feels amazing. It looks the part. Yep, there's a few companies in the UK that do this as well. I think String Theory do that as a service. It makes a big difference. The only problem is Alcantara goes horrible after a while. I'm on my second wheel in the car now. I had a Sparco 353 first, and now I've got a 323, and they go horrible and disgusting. That's the only downside to Alcantara in any kind of tactile places or places that you touch in the car. So it looks good for about 2 months, and then it looks gross.
You need to wear gloves.
I'm not wearing gloves going to the shop. Although saying that, I am going to a shop in a race car, so maybe I should just wear a helmet, hands, everything.
There you go.
Oscar Faraday 1mm toe out in the rear makes a huge difference. I don't like toe out in the rear personally. I prefer the rotation to come from the stiffness in the rear. The toe out in the rear, in a straight line, I feel it makes the back end a little bit too lively. I would rather have the stability from having toe in. But again, this is a perfect example of subjective changes. Like something that you like in the car, I don't personally like.
Yeah, I had also toe out at the rear in the beginning, and it was very, very lively. When I changed to Pirelli Trofeo R's, it was just hilarious to drive. I was just oversteering everywhere. And after that, I changed to toe in, and voila, much. I actually also like toe in. Not that much, just a teeny tiny bit, but it helps a lot. Yep.
I need to align my car. I've just realised. I crashed into a hedge.
Again. Oh, sorry.
Well, I crashed into the hedge. Since then, I've had the subframe off 3 times, and I've still not aligned it. So I should probably fix that. So that's on my list of jobs to do now. So thanks for reminding me, everybody, because God knows what it's doing.
Wait until you have the sway bars installed.
That's if I'm getting sway bars again. We'll see. It's money at the end of the day. But we shall see. Matteo said your new rap isn't that heterosexual. That's because it's not. But also, Matteo is the arbiter of heterosexuality. Many stories. I still have fond memories of him trying to. Can we say? I don't know. I don't know if we can say. But
no,
he's trying to touch Phil in inappropriate places.
Yeah.
I think it was anything we've missed. I think we're covered pretty much everything.
Probably wondering how the HJS sounds with OPF delete but stock exhaust.
I think it's like this.
Can help you
I think that's how it sounds. Like,
Sounds like oh.
Maybe.
Oh, actually, I do have a car just outside with the HJS. No GPF. No, but he has a HJS, also HJS exhaust.
Go on then.
Stock.
Go and start it up.
I think I don't have the keys. Do I have the keys?
Egon, thanks for joining us, mate.
Yeah.
I'll catch up with you in a wee while. So wait, let's have a quick fire. This was supposed to be half an hour. It's been an hour and a quarter. So
yeah,
clearly the two of us have a lot to say about things.
Yeah.
Thank you for prompting us with questions. Is there anything else anybody wants to ask before we wrap it up? Because I have some work to get on with, and I need to get something to eat as well. So anything else before we go? Any feedback? Anything you guys want to see for next time? Do you want them to be in next time? Is it useful?
At least we had a few questions, and
23 people in here just now as well.
Yeah, and we actually had the chance to catch up again. So
yeah, we did. We did. It's always a pleasure talking to you when you're not bullying me. I think that's because you're waiting on parts from me. I think once you've got these parts off me, you'll be back to bullying again and being mean. Dark Elzo, thank you for joining us as well. It's appreciated. Chloe, you're not funny. I don't know how many times I need to say it. You're just not funny.
And for everyone that missed it, I don't know. I think it's possible to put it on my channel.
It should be archived. Yeah.
So I hope it gets archived, and then you can rewatch it again. And then we can all tell everybody, if you have intake questions, just watch.
Yeah, archive them. I think
the whole 76 minutes again.
To be honest, yeah, you're gonna have to timestamp these. I think. To be honest, I don't think you missed much in the first half an hour.
Yeah.
It was basically this was supposed to be introductions. It was supposed to be us just explaining who we are, why we're doing this. Clearly, it's growing arms and legs. So who knows? Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we'll get an interesting guest next time who can talk for an hour as well.
Yeah. So I think that's it.
I think so. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks everyone for the questions and everything.
I think we'll go away and have a think as well. See how often, if we're doing this again, we'll have a think how often. And like I said, we have got some interesting things we want to try and do. There are some guests who have offered to share their insights and their knowledge and experience too. So hopefully this could be a goer.
Yeah.
Alpo, thanks for joining us, mate. Good to see you. Adrian, also, thank you. Yeah, cool. Let's call it a night. Cheers, guys.
See you next time. Bye.
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 They'll stop the stream. This is really...
I'm working on it.
I'm just going to sit here.